Hello everybody, welcome to PlayStation Access. My name is Ash and I'm joined by Dave.
Hello.
And we have just come back fresh from a hell dive into Helldivers 2.
I'm so stoked, Ash. I loved playing Helldivers 2 and I'm really looking forward to doing this video and talking about it. It's so good.
So we had a 4-player squad going into this preview and we had an absolute blast. So we've got 5 reasons why you're going to absolutely love Helldivers 2. And first of all, I thought we better just go straight in there with talking about the combat, because that is the main meat of this game. And boy, is it meaty and bloody and gruesome.
Yeah, things pop, things fall apart. Things will crush you.
Yeah.
The combat in this game is excellent. It's so Moorish. All the different kinds of weapons are really fun to use and you have to really learn about them. All the different enemy types have their own traits. I got the impression that there is like loads to learn and there's no like right way to approach anything, which I think is really fun. And the combat is like the best example of that, of just getting into a squad, everyone just having these weapons, not really knowing what to do with them right away and figuring it out, but it's so much fun to do.
Yeah, for sure. It totally captures that kind of Starship Troopers, throwing cannon fodder down with heavy weaponry, figure it out as you go, because there's more of you coming if you fall down. And that is very much the vibe of Helldivers 2, and Helldivers in general, because the first game was very similar as well. That frantic sense of combat, of learning strategies on the fly, of accidentally bumbling through something and it looking very badass and cool is just amazing. It's so much fun. Like, there were so many moments where friendly fire came back to bite us, literally, but we'd still come through and then land a pod on something, or when you come back down and respawn, you can move your pod around as you come down, so maybe you land it on a bug or another person if you're lucky. I tried a lot, but I couldn't get anyone.
I was going to say, as well as accidentally looking cool, you can also try and look cool and do something bad.
Yeah.
Like, we all made massive mistakes, killing each other, throwing grenades at each other, in service to trying to complete our missions and kill these bugs or automatons or whatever we were up against. But time and time again we failed, but it was so much fun failing and funny. Like, we just laughed a lot playing this game. And your squad is, you know, kind of weak. You've got these amazing weapons, but you yourself are weak. The enemies are numerous, sometimes massive, always powerful, and your weaponry is really powerful. And it's such an interesting combination of being like a weak little guy, but with the ability to bring in like orbital airstrikes on these titans, like these massive bugs or whatever. It's such a cool, weird asymmetrical sort of thing, and it was so much fun to play. Yeah,
I think that kind of leads us nicely into talking about the stratagems as well, because they're another core part of the combat mechanics, where you have to type in a little code on your D-pad as fast as possible in the middle of combat, so you're trying to avoid getting splatted in the process. You can call down absolutely hellish assault packs or resources, or even set up some defense turrets, and you just have to basically survive long enough to be able to do it, and then you can throw yourself on the floor and watch it unfold whilst everything goes crazy around you. Like, that is so much fun. The stratagems are definitely the star of the show.
Yeah, 100%, and it's all again in kind of service to that being just a fairly fragile human, but with access to all this weaponry. So you are having to frantically input this code, but whilst you're doing that, you can't really be shooting or anything. You can just run away, having to pick your moment. Like, usually if you're needing to cool down a stratagem, it's because either you're getting prepared, which is very smart, or it's going wrong and you need to call in the big guns. And when you need the big guns and you are running, trying to read a little code and input it, it feels so real. The stratagems, as you said, come in kind of 3 flavors. Assault, so something big and offensive. A resource one, so you can call in certain weapons that you can use or your teammates can use, and then there are defensive ones that you can set up turrets and things like that, which will kind of help defend you. And so there's a whole load of strategy there with you and your teammates figuring out who should have what stratagem, and they're all really fun to call in. This is the other thing, you think you just want the big boom, but actually just seeing these pods fly in from the sky is always fun. So I never felt like, oh, I wish I had the big bomb. I was like, whatever I was calling in, it was always cool. I would always look up and watch it come down and I would always try and smash it onto some enemy at the same time. It's just brilliant.
Yes. We should talk about the enemies as well.
Yeah.
So we have the Terminids, which are a race of bugs that you may be familiar with if you've played the first game. If not, then they're very, very, very Starship Troopers. They're very, very the millions of xenomorphs in Aliens. They're lots of horrible little nasty creatures that are insect-like. And you also have automatons, which are basically robot people, but a bit more heavy machinery. They're very aggressive and nasty. They reminded me of Doom Eternals, like Revenant skull, like skeletons, but far less bony and far more metal.
Yeah, I think the Terminids, when I said earlier popping, like that's what I think of. They're crunchy, they're full of goo, and they literally pop. They spit poison and
They will put the
bile
goo
at
on you.
They absolutely will. That is their dream. They come out of nests, out of the ground. You have to throw grenades into these nests to explode them, and knowing that like the nest is eradicated is very cool. And then the Automatons, I've got to be honest, were my favourite to fight.
Ooh.
Mostly because I just felt like they were really crunchy and you could target specific limbs, their heads would come off. I felt like there were lots of different ways to attack them that weren't just kill them, if you know what I mean. It was like you could just disable them and know that you could slow them down, which I found just a lot of fun to do. They are very cool. Yeah. They're very cool looking. And they've got glowing bits that just invite you to shoot, you know? Yeah. It's like, shoot my glowing bits.
Oh, and I shall.
Yeah.
I feel like with the Automatons, I definitely had more of those last stand moments where they would kind of loom down on you and you'd be stuck in a prone position with your gun firing upwards, trying to kill them before they squashed you.
Yeah.
And you could kind of come out of it on top, whereas if you get overwhelmed by the bugs, you can be in that position and maybe get out of it, but it's far more likely they're just going to vomit all over you and turn you to absolute waste. So it's a fun little difference between the two, and that you've got the metal and the organic.
I think maybe the Automatons were a bit more revealing to new players because they look humanoid. You know what bits to shoot instantly, and like you kind of understand how that's going to work. I think the Terminids are going to have that same depth. It's just initially I was just overwhelmed by them and was like, oh god, get away. But I think there's going to be loads of different ways to take them down, and understanding that is going to be part of the fun.
For sure. And just 2 words: Bile Titan.
Yeah, 2 words I don't want to hear again.
Bile Titan.
Oh, I've heard them again. But so cool, so massive. The scale, I remember the moment we saw the Bile Titan for the first time, I think I did a little actual sort of whelp noise. And not the only thing there, you know? It's not like, and now here's the boss. It's like surrounded by its hordes of other creatures,
babies,
and somehow managed to take one of them out. I don't really know how and at what cost. I think it was at all of our lives, basically.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, that was a hint at the scale of the creatures that we will be fighting in this game, because that was really, really exciting and genuinely awesome. I was filled with awe when I saw it.
I was like, I'm gonna crush it. They were very cool to see. This is a 4-player game where you team up online and you all come together and do your collaborating, you're communicating, you're strategizing to go to the battlefield together and complete missions as well as possible. But most importantly, you can also compete against each other in a mini game on the ship.
Yes, you can, yes, which we did, and I don't want to talk about how it went, but I mean, we said how big a deal stratagems are in this game, and there is a little stratagem mini game, which is great. I don't know if you noticed, but it's actually telling you what stratagem you are unlocking as well, so you can learn the patterns, and you know good players are going to learn those patterns and do it second nature, whereas we were having to read all the patterns. But yes, the stratagem minigame was great. I mean, the co-op gameplay is just fantastic, and probably the best example of that is the friendly fire. It's not an option. Friendly fire is always on, and it's always funny, and we made so many mistakes and accidentally killed ourselves. Coming to terms with that was also really fun. I think we started to play better. We started to understand the different weapons each of us had and how they're going to be used, and started to be a bit more cautious or a bit more aware of where everybody was. And then communicating. We played one level on hard, and I mean, we were crushed, but we tried really hard, and it was so fun trying. We communicated our best. We were using all the little systems in the game to mark waypoints. We were trying to draw fire, lead the enemies away, choosing when to reinforce. I just feel like they've really honed what is good about multiplayer and why you should play it. It just feels like they've nailed it. It's just great fun, and we just scratched the surface.
Yeah, and the gameplay's amazing. But on to our next point, like the environments that it's set in also are a massive boon, one might say, to the gameplay experience overall as well. So you're going to planets, they have like day-night cycles, they have different weather systems. Like you're going to go somewhere and it's going to be gorgeous, just morning light breaking over the planet's edge, and you go somewhere else and it's deepest night, or the same planet, and experience it in those different ways as well. And you can be out on a mission when the sun comes up or goes down, so you see it go across when you're in there too. Yeah,
all the kind of levels are procedurally generated on these planets. You know, when you go to a planet will determine what time of day it is, so you'll see the same planets in day and at night and all these different maps. The sense of exploration I think was great. Every time I landed on a planet, I would take a moment to just look around and really felt like I was exploring this planet for the first time. It felt like we were miles from home in enemy territory.
We were,
and it felt like that, and like I was seeing this for the first time, looking around and trying to on the fly figure out where should we go, where's the high ground, where are we going to get attacked from, what are the hazards,
where should we drop into the mission as well at the beginning.
Exactly. Where will we make our last stand? Like how will we make our last stand? Every time you go to this place, it feels fresh and new. We only saw like a couple of environments. We saw this beautiful snowy level, which I loved. That was so evocative. We saw like kind of a jungly, foresty one, very foggy. I'm looking forward to seeing all of these planets at all different times of the day and just exploring this galaxy that they've built for us. It's that mixture of it's been built, but also the levels themselves are procedurally generated, so it's going to always feel fresh. You're not going back to the same maps, you're going back to the same planets.
Yes, and they all have different missions, and you can ramp up or ramp down the difficulty levels, and everything all goes towards your community goals on the large galactic map as well. Yeah,
this is the other thing I really liked, is that we are all citizens of Super Earth and we are taking part in a galactic battle, as well as your own personal goals, whether you set them yourselves or the game, gives you little kind of breadcrumbs to follow. There's going to be a larger community mission which is going to evolve. In our gameplay, the community goal was to try and liberate a particular planet and all the planets on the way to it. Whether you take part in that or not is up to you, but I found it really evocative and really cool and very kind of that genre, to know that every time I was on a planet I was fighting the good fight and trying to push out Super Earth's influence.
Yeah, that's all exactly it, isn't it? And that relates back to the first game as well, where Helldivers was all about this galactic map, community influence, spreading out across the galaxy, pushing back enemies, but it was from a top-down angle, so this is a totally new experience and really welcoming for new players as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If you've played the first game, I think that's great, but I don't think it's important to enjoy this game at all. And I love the decision they've made to change the camera angle. We obviously spoke to the deputy game director, and he was explaining how bringing the camera down to over the shoulder kind of restricts your view in a way, whereas from top down you've got an overview of the battlefield, but over the shoulder you're just looking in the direction you're looking, and how that brings so much to the gameplay of the squad-based gameplay with the friendly fire as well. You have to be on the ball, you have to be constantly vigilant. Another change from the original game, which I think is really interesting and important, is on the galactic map, is the galactic battle. Beforehand you were trying to win a galactic war, and if you did, congratulations, you'd go back to the start, and if you didn't, commiserations. This galactic battle we're talking about now is going to be ongoing for the lifetime of Helldivers 2. I don't know that it can be won. The enemies are also fighting back. They're going to be adjusting their strategy depending on how the community strategy goes, and that is going to be changing based on what happens as well. There's an actual story to be told here. It's not just this week we're all trying to liberate this planet. It's going to play out in real time based on what happens in the game, what the community choose to do and how they choose to do it. I don't think I've seen that in a game before. That's really exciting.
I think there's loads to uncover with the Helldivers 2 story. The most interesting one for me is the change from cyborgs to automatons, and our pal Saga's insistence that maybe they aren't the same thing as well, which we're going to have to find out more from when we get our hands fully onto the game. So I'm going to wrap us up there. We're both really, really excited for Helldivers 2, and you can hell dive into it yourself from the 8th of February on PS5. Stay tuned for more lovely PlayStation goodness. Bye!
PlayStation